Today, we need to learn what I expect out of you in labs. So we're going to go through just how a normal lab day operates, as well as some things that I expect from you. So first of all, you have little pieces of paper that I have laid out on the demo table. What I want you to do is see if you can put the order of the labs in the correct order. So pause the video here, get the steps in the correct order. You have 2 minutes, ready, set, go. And the order is, first of all, you need to sit down and listen to instructions. I will always have something to tell you. In fact, most often I will even demonstrate for you exactly what you need to do. So every single day you need to come in, get your binder under your chair so that you can just sit and listen to instructions really fast. After instructions are done, you are going to choose jobs. And I will show you the list of how you're going to choose your jobs, but you need to make sure that you actually get your job chosen, and then every time we're going to rotate. In a couple slides, I will show you actually what I'm talking about. So next would come choose jobs. After you choose your jobs, you should pull your hair back. The reason you pull your hair back before you wash your hands is so that you don't pick up germs from your hair and then start cooking again. A good idea is also not only to pull your hair back, but check your arms for any loose hairs that might have fallen down on your clothing. After you pull your hair back, you're going to wash your hands for 20 seconds of lathering, rinse them off in hot water. That's the only way your hands are ever going to get clean. So you need to make sure that you're following the full 20 seconds or ABCs, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Happy Birthday. Any of those songs to sing in your head would be fine. Just make sure that you're doing it while you're scrubbing with soap for that long. After you wash your hands, we actually get to do the lab. So when you're doing the lab, you have a lot of different responsibilities to do in a short amount of time. Number one, you need to make sure that you're in your lab and that you're not wandering to anyone else's. So it's imperative, meaning extremely important, that you are present in your group and that you are actually participating and doing the jobs that are required of you. If someone else has to pick up the jobs that you're supposed to be doing, you lose points. So make sure that you are actually participating. You might not even be able to eat if you continue to act like a slug. So that, um, after you do the lab, you sit down with your lab at your table and you eat your food. Um, Whether it turned out or not, it's yours to try out. So go ahead and eat your food. After you are done eating, immediately you need to start cleanup. And when you clean up, really the goal is to leave the lab cleaner than how you found it. I will always ask you to please let me know if a group has not cleaned up the way they are supposed to. I will come look at it and then I get the points taken off of the correct people. You might have to clean up their extra mess, but at least that way you know that your dishes are clean. After you clean up, you're going to get your lab checked. So I'm going to come around and check that you actually wiped off the counters, that you scrubbed out the sinks, that you did all of the things that you're supposed to be doing. So make sure that you get your lab checked. And then after your lab is checked, you sit down and wait to be dismissed. I can't have you up and running around. You need to make sure that you are actually sitting down and waiting for your other groups to finish so that you can be dismissed for the bell. Okay, so I was talking about these different jobs that you're going to have. So here is how I grade you on this lab job assignments, foods lab job assignments. So first of all, there are 4 different jobs for every single lab. So each time a new student is going to get the responsibility of a different job. So every time you're going to write your name next to whichever job you end up with. Each of these jobs have a different responsibility. So if you are the chef, You are in charge of all of these things on this list. So you do the actual cooking, which means you're stirring the actual pot. You don't get to add any ingredients. Literally, all you get to do is stir and actually do the cooking either in the oven or on the stove or in the blender, that kind of thing. You would push the button to turn the blender on, okay? The chef also needs to clean out the sink with soap and water. And you're like, well, why do I need to do that? Well, it's really important that you make sure that your sink is kept cleaned out. Otherwise, a lot of bacteria can grow in there. After you clean it out with soap and rinse it out. So what I mean by soap and water is you just have to take and wipe out the sink after the suds are gone. Just use those suds from the dishwater to wipe it out with hot water and then dry it out with a different rag. You're also in charge of washing the countertop, table, and stove, which means that you take a washcloth and you fold it into a square and you put your whole hand on it and you wash the counter back and forth with hot soapy water. Okay, now you leave it wet, the chef does, which means that the assistant chef is going to come and dry the countertop for you right here. Okay, so the assistant chef is in charge of adding the ingredients. So you would put the banana into the chocolate banana shake. You would also, if we use the microwave, you wipe out the microwave. Assistant chef is also in charge of drying the dishes as well as drying the countertop when everything is done. Food server takes out the necessary mixing and measuring equipment. So if we were making chocolate banana shakes, they would take the blender out and put it together. The food server would also be in charge of serving the food, which means scooping it out of the container or pouring the smoothie or whatever it happens to be. Food server is in charge of washing the dishes, which we will learn later, but you fill the sink with hot soapy water and they actually scrub all of the stuff off of the food. And then they put the dirty towels in the basket. The basket is located over in Lab 7 in the shelf unit. So you need to make sure that you are putting the dirty towels where it says dirty. You're taking the clean ones out of the basket that says clean. Make sure you pay careful attention to that. The last job is the table attendant. And the table attendant is actually the person that fills out all of this information. So they need to figure out what food are we making? What is the date? Circle the period number and the lab number and write down any absent group members from your group. They also write in all of these names for each of the jobs every time. Table attendant also sets the table. So if you are having breadsticks, the table attendant would put the plates out on the table as well as the forks or napkins or anything else they might need. The table attendant also gets the supplies from the supply table. So if we're making chocolate banana shakes, the table attendant would get the banana from the counter or get the ice cream from the counter and bring it to the lab. The table attendant also puts clean dishes away. And if the chef, assistant chef, or food server is missing, the table attendant would take their jobs. So say Mrs. Calrow is gone today, then Mrs. Love is the table attendant. Mrs. Love would also become the assistant chef. So this job, if you only have 3 people in your group, this job is where you might double up. So the food server could also be the table attendant, or the assistant chef could also be the table attendant. It doesn't matter to me, but each of these jobs have to get filled every single lab. If you look down here where it's yellow highlighted, it says you have to rotate duties among the group members for each food lab. So I will explain how to do that more when we start the shakes, but you need to make sure that you are rotating jobs. Then it says, please list any of the following on the back of the paper. If your group is not working together, please write that on the back of the sheet so that I know who I need to talk to. If you are missing a measuring cup, you could stick that on there too. If you are in search of something in your lab, go ahead and go write that on the back of your sheet. This is how you're going to be graded every time. There are 5 different categories: using equipment correctly, staying in the lab and not wandering, following directions, which means verbal, things I tell you, as well as written, which means the recipe. And then that your kitchen was clean and sanitary and working safely in the kitchen. So I write each of your names under each of these lab sections. If I notice that George is using a 1/4 measuring cup instead of a 1/4 measuring spoon, he gets a check mark here and George loses a point for the class period. Say I notice that Roger is wandering, he goes from lab number 4 into lab number 2. Well, that's a check mark for Roger. He loses a point. Labs are only worth 5 points. So if you get 1 check mark in each of these categories, you get a 0. If you get 1 check mark overall, you're already down to a 4 out of 5, which is a B. So you need to keep that in mind as you are participating in lab. You really need to focus and participate in your lab rather than paying attention to your other classmates or things like that. Okay, so a few requests about labs. A few things that drive me insane if you choose to do them. Okay, first of all, paper towel is not a basketball, and I don't like getting hit with dirty paper towel, which has happened to me before. So you should walk your paper towel over to the garbage and lightly drop it in the garbage can. Please do not chuck it from a different lab into the garbage can. Please do not stand there and shoot your paper towel into the garbage can. You need to make sure that you walk it over there. Next one, my mirror on the demo table is worth a lot of money. It's like a $600 mirror. So please don't touch it because it's kind of fragile, but I use it for demonstrating so that you guys can see what I'm doing on the countertops. Please just don't hang on the bars on the sides. Make sure that you're not touching the mirror. I will adjust it if we need to. The space behind the demo table is mine. Please give me my space. I don't like people back here unless I ask you to come back here. Also, a tip for you. If you leave the labs cleaner than how you found them, you will almost always get 100% on your lab, unless you're wandering or goofing off. So you just really try to make sure that you are keeping your labs in good shape, because if the labs get ruined, then we don't get to cook anymore. So you need to make sure that you're taking responsibility of your space and keeping it really clean. All right, so if you have any questions, I am more than happy to answer them later. But my main request is that you are participating, you are paying attention, and you are trying your best to learn something new in the kitchen.